With Prim and Bruce's new turnout pens about 90% finished, this week I'm going to try and advance Bruce in his halter training a little bit more. After a few days off from some emergency dental work, I think he did regress a little bit. He is still quite a young foal, so these things are bound to happen. I'm just going to keep chugging along and look for tiny little improvements every day. Typically, there is a point in a young horse's training where they already know the concepts, but they do try and push the boundaries a little bit. And I do think that this little guy is at that point. Even Tiny sensed that Bruce needed a little bit more supervision. On a normal day, I start off by feeding all of the horses. Then I'll go in with Bruce and start cleaning their pen and get his halter on. After that, I kind of let him just choose when he wants to hang out with me. Here lately, he's been dropping off special presents every single time I clean out his pen. After that, typically he'll come over and stand on his mat if he wants to get more scratches. Since Bruce doesn't have any other baby horses to play with, I need to find something that will occupy his mind so he's not getting into so much trouble. He really doesn't race around frantically in his pen anymore, so now that he has control over those long legs, I can feel a little bit better about tossing this ball in with him. Bruce didn't seem too scared of the big ball, but the local prairie dog population was very suspicious. Good boy. Currently, Bruce is a little bit over 3 months of age. He is still too young to be weaned. Prim is getting less and less interested in his daily activities, and they're spending a lot more time on separate sides of the pen. It seems as though Bruce goes back and forth as to which horse across the fence he is more interested in. Last week he was definitely more occupied with what Scarlett was doing, but this week Ziggy had his number. Our training sessions are quite short, so there is a lot of the day where his mind is left to wander. After introducing the ball, I decided to try and teach him how to pick it up with his little teeth. Bruce is a pretty smart horse, and he figured out pretty quickly that if he nosed the ball over to me, that I would roll it back to him. This big ball is fairly safe, and it's a really good way to introduce a novel item to a horse that has a very low possibility of causing injury. Since I've been handling Bruce a lot, he is not very sensitive on pretty much any part of his body anymore. Where a lot of horses might react to this bouncing off of their legs, Bruce doesn't think it is a big deal at all. He's naturally a pretty outgoing horse, but I've been training him in a way that allows his mind to figure out things on its own. I've been pretty strategic with his training in the hopes that he would grow his curiosity, and this just goes to show how good this training can be for these little horses. The last horse that I used this big ball on was Sparkler when she came here. She also ended up turning into a very curious, outgoing horse and actually used this big ball as kind of a pacifier while she was in her pen. The ball is just suspicious enough that it keeps their mind engaged long enough for them to not think about all of the other scary things going on outside their pen.
Oh, ah!
With all of my hay lined up, I'm feeling a lot better about searching for a friend for Bruce. For some reason, I've been seeing a lot of really nice fillies this year, but I would definitely prefer he has a stud colt to play with. He hasn't been playing very long with the ball, but I noticed that he was getting a little bit fatigued in those front legs. I've had a lot of questions about his legs recently, and although they look pretty darn straight most days, they just get tired pretty quickly. This is very common in a young horse. You can see their legs kind of shaking as they've reached their limit. Bruce did have slightly contracted tendons from growing too quickly. He has improved greatly, but he is coming up to another point in a very young horse's life where you do have to look out for a few things. Since I've already had some trouble with Bruce's growth rate and a few developmental problems, I am watching him very closely for any signs of epiphysitis, which is inflammation of those growth plates. Right now, Bruce and Prim are on a grass hay and they are getting ration balancer. Epiphysitis can be genetically linked. It is also nutritionally linked. It can be aggravated by excessive exercise as well as conformation faults.
What's that horse doing to you?
In some breeds and certain disciplines, it is more common, like thoroughbreds and also halter horses. While Bruce did have some very obviously contracted tendons early on, the root cause could actually be epiphysitis. This is most common in horses under 7 months of age. In preparation for Bruce's next growth spurt, I did purchase a more concentrated vitamin and mineral balance. It is really important that he's getting all of the little building blocks he needs to grow without the extra starch and sugars. At this stage in the game, a horse like Bruce can change from day to day and week to week, so I am definitely keeping a very close eye on him. Most days, as long as Bruce gets a little bit of his breakfast before we start our work, he is really a very well-behaved baby. He knows how to stand still for grooming and will let me do his whole entire body now, even some of the most sensitive places. Before I do the typical halter breaking with a lead rope leading them around, I want to make sure Bruce understands how to move all of the parts of his body. He has a basic idea of this because we did work on it when he was much smaller, just as a necessity. Here recently, I've been getting more specific with my cues and he is really having no trouble catching on. In addition to moving his hips, I am also working with lateral flexion. Bruce is not short in the brains department, so he is picking things up relatively quickly. In previous weeks, he would get a little bit frustrated with learning something new, and after I did a bit of training, he would run off and go stand by Prim and get a drink of milk. Now he is a lot more confident, and even if I teach him something new, he'll walk away for a few seconds and then come right back. All of these tiny little things added up are going to make the actual halter breaking process a lot more smooth for this guy. These cues are also going to be carrying over when I eventually go to ride this little dude. Our sessions are still very short. We're talking less than 10 minutes, most of the time less than 5. If you play your cards right, this is more than enough time to make improvements every single day.
Done with school for today? You're a very good boy. Hey, you're not done with school, you little punk. at your head. Trying to do something here.
Bruce has very quickly become pretty comfortable with his new ball. It does make for a pretty sneaky way to get extra scratches.
What are you doing, you little weirdo?
I have been scouring the internet for a buddy for this guy, and it's still a little bit early in the year. Some of the horses that are bred for a more performance life are ready to be weaned since they were born much earlier in the year. A lot of the horses that were produced on big ranches out in open fields that have production sales are not going to come up for sale for a little while yet.
Very pretty, Brucey. Very pretty.
If you've never seen a production sale before, I will link one of my favorite ones in Montana that I've been to before. Most of the really nice weanlings that I've been finding for sale are in Montana and North or South Dakota. I honestly don't feel like making that drive anytime soon. I do have a few friends that come down this direction for the fall trail riding and going out in the mountains. If they have room on their trailer to bring me down a baby, I will definitely be using their help to get Bruce a little friend. While it would be really nice for him to have a buddy, one of the benefits for keeping him separate from other foals is that I can control a little bit better how much exercise he's getting. If he were turned out with another baby, it would be so much harder for him to call it quits when his legs get tired. Just today, I have noticed that he is getting a little bit of shaky legs up in the front. If those growth plates do get a little bit inflamed, it can be painful for these young horses. Horses growing up on the range that don't get checked on frequently can have problems that are completely missed, which can cause problems down the road as they develop and grow. I've been getting a lot of sass lately about how it's so much better for young horses to grow up in a herd. And while that is true for their development, it is also beneficial for them to have eyeballs on them pretty much 24/7. Horses born out in the wild have a very high mortality rate the first year they're alive.
Oh, so pretty. So pretty.
Next in line are horses bred and raised out in big open pastures. The group of horses with the least likelihood of accidentally hurting themselves and dying within the first year are those raised in and around humans. While I would never want to raise a young foal predominantly in a stall unless medically necessary, I think this setup for these two horses at this point in time gives them the best chance of growing up properly. Even when I go to turn Bruce out with his own little herd, there is the possibility that he's going to be needing separate nutrition from all of the other horses.
Ivar!
He just would not be able to get that out in a huge herd full of horses.
Hey, buddy, where's your cat? Where's your cat?
I think a lot of times when you're seeing horses raised in a big production type setting out on the range, you are just not seeing all of the injuries and accidents that may be occurring. There is a percentage of horses that are raised in that environment every year that get hurt and they need to be culled for one reason or another. It's definitely not something that you see online, especially when someone is presenting their operation on YouTube.
I'm looking.
But I can guarantee that I am going to see a lot of young horses that are culled by breeders popping up in the sales this fall. While ethical breeders will a lot of times euthanize these horses, There are those that just take them to the local sale barn, pull their papers, and try and disappear them. These are the ones that I really hate to see, but it is important not to ignore that part of the industry. I'm also anticipating a lot of really nice weanlings ending up at sales or online because their breeders cannot afford the price of hay or the drought has damaged their pastures. I'm lucky that I found enough hay that is affordable that I can feed my horses through the winter, but that is simply not the case for a lot of producers around the country. Bruce is going to be totally fine if he doesn't have another weanling buddy, but I'm pretty confident in a few more months there are going to be a lot that need homes. Unfortunately, we are still waiting on our well to get hooked up to our house. Prim and Bruce's new pen did have a few prairie dog holes pop back up. I'm guessing it's going to be another week until they completely vacate the area. We did order 100 more tons of crusher fines for the horses' new dry lots. That, along with the skid steer, should be coming next week. I've been spending a lot more time with the horses and Tiny this week. I'll be pretty limited in what I can get done around here until the well is actually complete and functional. After a few days of being extra sassy, it looks like Bruce is ready to do some serious learning. It probably doesn't really look like very much, but I can definitely see a shift in his mind through the last couple of days.
Scratch little head.
Unfortunately, I have noticed that Bruce's legs are getting a little bit sore. He's known how to pick up his feet for quite a while now and is typically very good about it. The vet and I had discussed possibly putting him on an anti-inflammatory if his legs were not improving. Through his diet change and the restriction of exercise, they did improve. Now that we're coming up on another key point where he is going to be growing quite a bit, I'm wondering if we might have to do that. He really didn't run around too much yesterday playing with his ball, but I can tell he is a little bit taxed from it. I know some of you are going to think that it is not a huge deal, but if these horses continually stress their legs over and over, there is the potential for some real damage to be done. If you're not keeping an eye on how much exercise they're getting and they continue to run around on legs that hurt, it is going to change the way that they physically stand. Over time, this can cause a change in their conformation, the way their hooves grow. everything that can lead to permanent problems as they grow. Bruce is a pretty fancy little horse, and in the past I have been in charge of managing much fancier horses than him. Breeding horses can be extremely expensive, and once you get them on the ground, the work is not over. Keeping a watchful eye on these young colts as they grow up can make the difference in if they're going to be sound for a show career or if they are going to remain a pasture pet for the rest of their lives. It may seem overly dramatic, but I think because I've seen so many horses culled at low-end auctions for completely preventable problems, it has led me to become overly cautious of raising these little horses. Bruce has never been very wiggly about getting his halter on, but today he stood completely still and I didn't have to have my arms on him to buckle it at all. Before releasing him, I am going to work on some lateral flexion, and then he did learn how to lower his head the other day. He wasn't quite sure about it at first, but he is picking everything up rather quickly. For Bruce's halter training and his training in general, I am focusing more on building up his little brain than actually completing certain tasks. It is not uncommon in a production type setting to wean all the horses at once, get a halter on them, tie them up, and basically break them to leading in a day or two. It may look like I'm just fiddling around every day with Bruce, but I don't know very many 3-month-old colts that already know how to stand ground tied for a complete grooming session. This is not something that he learned by accident. He is a very good-minded colt, but these things have to be taught. Bruce is a pretty intelligent horse just because of his breeding, but he is going to be a lot more well-adjusted than a horse that is raised in a production type setting. I have been a little bit worried about his legs bothering him, and it is becoming more apparent, especially when I go to pick up his feet, that they are causing him some pain. I think for now we are still going to hold off on any anti-inflammatories. I think he did have a rather rambunctious day yesterday with his ball, so I did remove it from his pen. Hopefully he will continue to self-regulate the amount of running around he does, and we won't have to intervene any further. Even when Huckleberry or Ivar are distracting Bruce outside the pen, it's pretty easy for him to keep focused. Huckleberry has never been a dog that likes to dig holes, but for some reason lately it's been his new favorite thing. And Bruce has found it quite distracting during his training sessions.
I'm watching you.
I do think on camera, Bruce and Prim's pen looks a lot smaller than it actually is. I measured it today and it is 100 feet long. As soon as the prairie dogs stop digging out their burrows, I am going to be turning Prim and Bruce out for most of the day, as long as Bruce's legs hold up.
Baby turkeys.
Thank you guys so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.
Oh. Where is your cat today? Where is he, buddy? Ivar! Where is he? Look at that, good boy. Come do it, Ivar.